What's up, and welcome to another episode of the Alumni Podcast. I am Jim, not from New York, really from Santa Monica, I guess. And I got my man, Tyler Smith here. What's up, bro?
I am Tyler from the Congo of Cairo. So that's what I'm going by now, I guess. But yes, also from Santa Monica.
We have a very special guest today, whether Tyler blacks out or not. Madeline Mann, who I think I've known since the fourth grade, honestly, which is absolutely insane. What's up, Madeline? How are you?
I'm so good. And also very impressed that you remember that it was the fourth grade when we met, because I came into Grand Elementary kind of late and spot on.
Yeah.
Like it was fourth grade.
I have a good memory, as you will see. And I do remember you moved from somewhere to Santa Monica, right?
Yes. I moved from Memphis to Santa Monica.
Two totally different worlds, I bet. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
We'll get into that. How are you doing, Madeline? You good?
I'm so good. Yes, it's so good to kind of dive back in, connect with old classmates, because it's been too long.
It's been 13 years exact. And Tyler, what should I do? Should I take her back?
I think you got to take her to the Wayback Machine.
Oh, snap. We got to take Madeline all the way back to June 17th, 2010, which seems forever ago to the youngsters out there. I just want to make reference that the hit movie while we were in high school was Toy Story 3. Karate Kid was number 2, and Shrek Forever After was number 3. I want to make reference that on that day, California Girls by Katy Perry was number 1 on the radio stations, followed by OMG by Usher and will.i.am, which still plays. Honestly, it's on the radio still. And the Lakers, which overshadowed our complete graduation, beat the Celtics 83-79, and everyone was checking the scores the entire time. But on that day, Madeline, your name started with an M. My last name starts with an M, and we were in line. We were sweating. It was hot. It was a June day. We were in blue gowns, if you recall. And we had to climb up the Greek theater, which was a challenge in itself. But you walked up on stage after long time waiting. We got halfway and there's like 13th letter in the alphabet. And Dr. Hugo Pedroza, he sang us a song, and he called your name, and he passed you a piece of paper that was not your degree. It was a piece of paper that you would pick up your degree afterwards. And he handed that to you. You were super excited, probably. The ceremony ended. You tried to find your parents. You're probably lost for a bit. You pick up your degree. Did you go to grad night, Madeline?
So I did go to grad night, but you get your degree at the very end, and I snuck out because I had to go work at a summer camp. And so to this day, I don't have my high school degree.
We have to get that situated, honestly. It's like,
well, they bulldozed the building where it would have been held. So
it's really different Samurai. That's insane. And then after you didn't get your degree, and I guess you did go to grad night, what happened next? That's the whole premise of this alumni podcast. It's like, we don't know what happened to any of our peers, and we're just trying to reconnect.
Yeah. It's so funny. When you said California Girls, I guess the next thing I did is, I think that summer I went on a Euro trip with Liz and Antonia, and I remember being in Florence, Italy, and the song California Girls playing, and just thinking, is the United States just like the center of the universe for entertainment? I am a California girl in Florence, Italy, and this radio is talking about me. I was just like, what? This is so weird. Like I'm thinking I was going to listen to Italian music. So anyway, so that was an amazing trip. We did a bunch of different cities. And then I went to college. I went to UC San Diego. So I didn't really venture very far. I went there and immediately joined the newspaper a week before school even started because I was that eager. I applied to be at the Samo High newspaper and they rejected me. So this was finally my chance.
Right there. No.
Right? And I worked up the ranks of that paper.
Hey,
so
let's go.
The Samo High can
take notes.
Regret that.
I love it.
And I ended up, I remember it was the second week of college, and my suite mate, who her and I had become fast friends, she said, "You need to rush for a sorority. Like, come rush with me." And I said, "Absolutely not. That's not me. That's not really my vibe." And she kept saying different things, like, "You'll get invited to parties." Like, that's okay. You can, have lots of new girlfriends. No, it's okay. And she said, "You could have a really big professional network when you graduate." And I said, "Okay, yeah, sure."
That's the appeal.
I'll rush a sorority.
Clearly it fits.
Yeah. So I rushed a sorority and I joined the sorority that had the largest professional network in the United, like, of any sorority. And while I did join it for professional reasons, it was the best decision of college. That was just a phenomenal move. I became a Chi Omega.
Awesome. Honestly, I wouldn't have taken you for a sorority girl, but that's awesome. I mean, in college, I feel like we venture off and we do different things, and that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Okay. So you're first of all, you're writing articles for the UC San Diego newspaper.
It's called The Guardian.
That's super cool. What area did you cover, or did you just cover everything?
So I was a part of the opinion section. Then I became a columnist in the opinion section. Then I went on to be the opinion editor, managing editor, and then kind of running all the training programs and like hiring and all that, which is funny. It was like my first foray into human resources, which is ultimately the career I went into. But I ended up taking up over all the human resources of the newspaper while in college.
One thing that me and Tyler love to hear about is like how you settled on human resources. Right. You're in college, you joined the sorority, you're writing for the newspaper. What's like your major? Like, what are you thinking about like during this process?
Yeah. So I started as a communications major, and I remember my boyfriend at the time had said something like, "I would never let my kid become a communications major." And he was like, "Because it's such a useless major." And I remember getting really mad at him. So then I was like, maybe he's right. And so I made that my minor, and I made my major psychology, which, I think psychology is extremely useful, but of course it's still a very broad major. So I started majoring in psychology, absolutely loved it. Like every psychology class I took, for the first time in my life, just everything felt easy. And I felt like I really understood every study and all of that. And it felt very intuitive to me. And I love the psychology aspect. And then only in hindsight did I realize I was already taking on human resources roles in college, such as in my sorority, I was voted in. I even wrote on my ballot saying, "I don't know if I could accept any positions. Like, I'm really busy right now on the newspaper." But they voted me into being the member educator, which is essentially the person who onboards all of the new members, which is a very human resources type role. So anyways, I'm getting close to graduation. I think it's late my junior year. I'm switched my major to psychology. I'm running around with my head cut off because I'm thinking, how am I going to graduate in time for switching my major so late? And I just start reaching out to everyone on LinkedIn who I know who got a psychology degree. And I asked them, "What did you do with this degree? And can you walk me through what your life is like, or more, what is your career life like?" And so I went with a school psychologist and I did a tour of a school and saw her job. I talked to a human capital consultant. I talked to an advertiser, a market researcher, just all these different people. And then one person who was a senior when I was a freshman in my sorority, she went into human resources and she got a psychology degree. And so I asked her, "Hey, can I take you out to dinner and talk to you?" And everything she described about the human resources function really fit with everything I was looking for in a career. And so I just started hyper focusing on how do I make the most out of my last year of college to position myself well for that to be my career.
Can I just say that that's absolutely brilliant, because we just spoke last episode about like what we would do differently. And in college, like a lot of people are trying to choose majors and they can't settle on one because they can't predict the future. Like they don't know, when I was choosing to be a lawyer, I didn't know what my day to day was going to be like. But you actually reached out to people on LinkedIn and you were like, hey, I'm a psych major. You have a cool life. You're pretty cool. I've seen you on LinkedIn or whatever. Can I shadow you? Can I talk to you? And were they receptive? I mean,
Oh, 100%.
that's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you just drop the thing that you're a student, or a lot of people like this. The school psychologist was simply someone who I went to college with. She mentioned her mother was a school psychologist, and I said, "Hey, can I meet her?" And she's like, "Okay." And her mother was so proud to walk me around and show me her job. And a lot of people get a lot of satisfaction from that of helping someone and showing them, hey, here's what I do.
I'm sorry to get calls for young people who want to be lawyers like that kind of know me or came across me. And I'm telling them like everything that I know about it and trying to show them my lifestyle because it's going to be them, right? So when you saw like her lifestyle, is it something that like triggered you and you're like, yes, like she has a cool situation. I want to be just like her? Or like what was like the validation?
Oh, when I talked to the person who was human resources. So I asked her tons of detailed questions about the day-to-day, the worst parts of her job, the best parts of the job, the skills she had to build, all those things. And hearing her talk about it, it really played to the things that I wanted. I really wanted a career where I could climb the ladder. Like I really like achievement. And so, something like a school psychologist, you don't climb the ladder. Yeah. You are just there, and that's a really great move for some people. It wasn't for me. I also like to be on a team. Again, school psychologist isn't as much team oriented as that. I loved the people element. I love building processes from scratch. Like all these aspects of it really felt in line with my strengths and my values. And so it just, then of course I continued to go down that path and figure out more about it. But then in hindsight, I looked at all of the skills I had already been building in college and just saw it. I had already been choosing this path before I had even chosen it.
That's interesting. You just say that. Like it's like almost, you didn't choose it as much as it chose you, right? I think that's almost, tossed around a lot. But in your case, it seems like it was very true in that instance. But definitely like what you said about reaching out to people and them helping you when you kind of put yourself in that vulnerability or, I'm this young individual looking to start this career. What are your thoughts on that? I think that's underrated because a lot of people are too afraid to put themselves in that asking for help mode. But so many people are receptive to that. So I think that's a really good pro tip, like Jim was mentioning.
Yeah. So you're in college. You finally settled on what you want to do because you did your due diligence. Like this is what we preach on this podcast pretty much. And now it's time to actually like, I guess, delve into or get that first spot upon graduation. There's no better person to ask than you about this, but like how did you get your foot in there? Like what was the process like?
Yes. So what I did is her name is Liz as well, who is the one who I talked to in that informational interview meeting. And I said, okay, tell me the bullet points of everything you did to land your human resources role at this video game company that you work at now. She said, okay, well, first I graduated from UCSD. I think I was actually also a communications major. Second, I went to USC and got my master's in organizational psychology. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that everyone needs to go out and get a master's degree. I don't think I needed one to work in HR, but I just followed the list. Okay, so I applied to that same program, got in, and did the program. During the program, they require that you work during it and require that you have an internship. And so I kept in touch with this mentor, and there was one point of the year where their human resources department was just overbooked, overrun. And so she brought me in to meet the human resources manager. That human resources manager talked to me, said she liked me, and just hired me as her intern. There was no other application process. There was no other competition. And that's really the magic of staying in touch with people, is you get jobs that never hit job boards, that are, there's never, your only competition is you making a good impression. And so that's how I got my first real human resources job. And I worked at this amazing company called Scopely, which is a mobile games company in LA.
Wow. Very cool. Tapping into your network is amazing. Obviously, that works out. That worked out for you. Okay, so you're an intern now at this company. What kind of work are you doing? Do you hate it? Do you love it? Like, I can't tell you, when I first became a lawyer, my first job, I did not love the work that I was doing, but I grew to love it after a long time working with the right people in the right circumstances. So kind of curious about your experience as a young intern starting as an HR person.
Well, this experience was a bit of a doozy. So I would not say I am the best entry-level employee. I'm definitely someone who is kind of, a bull in a china shop when it comes to making things happen, getting things done, coming up with projects. I'm not necessarily the person who you hand me, 100 pages of, employee files, and I have to find the 3 errors, in those 100 pages, right? So I did a lot of like very administrative work, and I worked really hard at it, but that's just not my strength is the detail oriented admin side of it. And then of course the other part was some of the other work, which was I helped a lot with building training programs and building out the onboarding process and helping to create really great employee experiences. And that stuff really lit me up. And ultimately, my manager was like struggle, like she didn't really give me a ton of context for a lot of the things I need to do. So I would do them wrong often. And I was kind of her first ever direct report. And so we had kind of trouble there. And ultimately I had to get let go. And that was a really devastating moment for me, because here I was like really working really hard and doing my best, but it just wasn't working out. And I go really in depth. I did a whole YouTube video on the nuances of what happened there. But in the end, it was still an amazing work experience, but it was very disorienting to love so many parts of my job, but then have to give it up.
Did you have a direct callback at that time, or what was the next, 6 months after that all occurred?
Yeah. So, I didn't really know what was next. Upon termination, I said, "Hey, my equity is about to vest. Could you change the date of this equity vesting to be this other date so that I can buy my equity?" And they said, "Okay, sure." Because they really liked me. They were like, "Yeah, like we'll do anything. We want to make this a really easy thing for you." That company just sold. And obviously it was like the smallest amount of equity, right? If you're an entry-level employee, they give you the smallest grant. But that company just sold, and that small grant of equity, I just recently got a check for $17,000 because of that one ask. And so that's just my reminder to everyone, is like, you can still make asks on your way out. And I was like, what? It was like finding like a pile of money in my couch cushions. I was like, what? Like, this is amazing. So
that's good. That's a good amount of money. That's a good,
right? Like, from one conversation to just ask them to change the date. And then I think I spent $300 buying my shares or something. Like,
fair. That's pretty fair.
Right.
Yeah. I'll take that. I'll take that. So I ended up then interviewing for several companies, and I did great in those interviews. That kind of helped to build my confidence of, I really knew how to sell my skills. And I ended up getting a job that was so far beyond what I truly believed to be my qualifications, because I think I sold myself a little too well. I ended up becoming the whole manager of an HR department.
From interns and managers, insanely
I love that audacious joke. Man. I've applied for
You're just
jobs
a
I'm not
gunner.
qualified for, but I've never gotten them like that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Madeline is just a gunner, dude.
Yeah.
Like she just will go and just try it. You know, I love that. That's a good.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, I never self-reject. I let them reject me. And if they don't reject me, then I just say yes and I figure it out. And I remember the first, like the weeks leading up to the job, um, it was so embarrassing because I went on Amazon and I bought a bunch of books of like HR for dummies and like how to do HR because I was so paranoid that I was going to put this business in jeopardy because I just felt like I felt underqualified. And it ended up being the greatest job of my
Awesome.
life. Like nothing will build your confidence faster than putting yourself in a situation that you feel underprepared for and then rising to the occasion.
Absolutely. I want to backtrack just for a second. Thank you for sharing the termination story because a lot of people are afraid to, expose their losses in life. Me and Steve expose ourselves on this podcast and, not in that type of way, but obviously like, you know, just generally, just like because it helps people realize that life is full of wins and losses. I mean,
Yes.
and someone who is obviously has a good online presence like you, that means a lot to a lot of people watching you because people have setbacks all the time, you know. And obviously, like that was a preparation for the next step, which sounds, and we'll get into it, like it set you up pretty well. Right.
Yeah. And it's working in human resources, I've had to terminate so many extremely talented people. So if anyone listening has been fired before, you're in great company, right? Like so many of us have been, and it's really it's like if a garden is not if a flower is not thriving in your garden, do you blame the flower or do you replant the garden? I mean, do you replant the flower somewhere else, right? And that is what you have to realize. It's just you're just a flower that needs to be planted somewhere else, and that's I got planted somewhere else, and I
Absolutely.
flourished.
Wow. Okay. So you're you're an HR manager from an intern, and you just started. Okay.
Right. I did get like I was a human resources administrator or associate or something. I did. There
You
was a
were at
step between
Starbucks
intern
as
and
a,
manager.
barista
I'll
or
tell you that.
something. Yeah.
So, do you feel like your skills carried over fully from being an intern, or did you really just have to just like grind and just catch on? Was there somebody there to kind of school you to like how they do things there, or like what was the situation like?
So fortunately, in the human resources team I was in prior, I really had a front row seat to the ins and outs. So while I might not have been the brains of the operation, I was the brawn. And so I had done a lot of the things I need to do. So when it came to me stepping into this role, I did have an idea of what a great human resources department looked like. And the role that I was stepping into was building out the human resources function. So it was very it was a very in-depth role where I had to basically start from shambles and build it up myself, which I think in a way, depending on your personality, might be easier than coming into an already built situation because I really was able to fully understand what each piece of the department and each policy and each process that we had and had was very intentional and it was fantastic. Like I said, it really built my confidence. And so I not only took my historical knowledge, I took my knowledge from my master's degree, and then as well as I just read a ton of books, really did my research, leaned on mentors, and I was within the first year, I believe I won one of the 6 high performance awards in the company. And so it was just a huge vote of confidence that take jobs before you're ready.
Wow.
And this is circa 2016. What years are we talking?
Yeah, I would say around 2016, somewhere
You
around there.
branched off into self-made millennial at what stage, I guess? Pre-COVID?
So I think a few years into this job, it was so revealing because I got to handle the entire recruiting process and I got to read every single piece of feedback everyone wrote about each candidate. And I got to be in the room as every executive talked about different employees and what they liked about them and what they didn't. And some very clear patterns were emerging. And especially with my 2 psychology degrees, I was able to see it in granular ways of those are the triggers that lead hiring managers to really like someone, or those are the triggers that really turn people off. And I was really hoping to help people. If you have ever seen the inside of an applicant tracking system, it really reveals that a lot of people don't know how to sell themselves and are doing a lot of resumes are atrocious, unfortunately. And it's not because people are dumb or untalented or anything like that. It's actually quite the opposite, but they're working off of old templates or bad advice, or they're just simply too close to their own story and don't know how to be compelling about it. So I was so driven by this mission to help these people who I knew could do better, who I knew could sell themselves better in the hiring process. So I thought, why don't I start a YouTube channel? And so I started putting out videos, didn't expect anything to come of it. And for full context, I mean, I know we know how the story ends, but in that time, they were not getting views. Okay. I got a lot of great feedback, people saying, I love your videos. But as far as the quantity, as far as them just hitting the internet and then suddenly blowing up, I never had that. It's been a very much a snowball effect of rolling down a hill kind of. And as the snowball gets bigger and bigger, it gains speed and it gains size. But it was humble beginnings, and it was really just a pure hobby where I was spending dozens of hours a week creating content. It was a grind, and I was coming out with a video a week, putting every video probably took me 15 hours to do start to finish. And this is all in early mornings and in the evenings.
How did you find the time to start? And obviously you've been extremely consistent. So did you start these videos while you were working? Like in the truck? Okay.
Yes. So I started when I was working, and I loved my job. So I had a lot of energy. It's not like I'd get off of work and be dead tired and face the pillow. So that helped me keep going. And I had found several hours in the evening and then several hours before
That's
work.
amazing. Do you remember like your first video that really gained a lot of traction?
It might have been the question that everyone always searches for, which is tell me about yourself. That's the interview question. Tell me about yourself. And so many people answer it in a way that doesn't help them. And I believe that one of those videos really helped me. And then as well as there's a video I did on behavioral interviewing where I talk about a strategy called Story Toolbox. And to this day, people just write me the most effusive emails saying that one video changed their entire lives and they were able to land job offers because of that. And that has been really cool to see, because it is it's a very impactful strategy. And that one to this day, it's one of my highest viewed videos.
As your platform gets bigger, is it get harder to deal with? Do you get a lot of trolls, or do you get a lot of angry comments? I mean, it's the internet, right? So what's your take on positive and negative? How do you deal with the negative, and what's your whole take on the troll philosophy, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes. The trolls are alive and well. I am definitely not immune to them. What's so interesting is they're really mean at the beginning, and then they chill out once you start to get, some rhythm, and then they get really mean again once you get big enough. And I would say LinkedIn, if you post anything on LinkedIn, you will get no trolls. Everyone there is on their best behavior. If you post on YouTube, mostly people are pretty nice as well, because a lot of them are very intentionally searching for and watching your content. So they're a little bit nicer. The worst is TikTok. I have a sizable following.
That's where I
on
found you,
TikTok.
Madeline. I haven't told you the
It was a
story, but
troll, actually. You didn't know
I
that.
was one of the trolls.
He's one
Done.
of the trolls.
That's what happened. But I was
Oh,
scrolling and I saw you like while I was scrolling, and I was like, Madeline, like, you know what I mean? I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So I followed you, and I started watching your content, and I was like, see, we got to get her on. I mean, it's I'm gonna track her down, find her email or something, and just see if she remembers me.
So funny.
I love that. Yeah, exactly. So I've done quite a bit on TikTok, but I lose my steam quite often on that platform for the exact reason I just named, is that people just are so negative on that platform. They question everything. They'll just say things that are patently false. So I will say something that I would stake my entire life and reputation on. Like, I know for a fact this thing is true, and I would never think that anyone would even debate me on it. And then people in the comments be like, "That's cap. That doesn't make any sense. Nope, never happened for me, so it's never happened for anyone else." It's just like I can't deal with this.
Yeah, it's some unhappy people on that platform, but sometimes it's funny though. So I'll read the comments sometimes, and I'm just like, someone will say something really dumb, and it just makes me. I'm like, why do you take life so like unseriously? I don't know. So okay, what is the point of where you're like, I can be a full-time content creator, or I can, really take this by the reins and run with it? Because a lot of people, if they get like 10,000 views or something, they're just probably going to quit their job tomorrow, and say, I'm just going to be an influencer. But I don't think that that's you, because you like are very sustainable, and I think you think everything out very carefully. So like, let us know. What is that inflection point?
I was someone who loved my job. When I worked at that amazing company for as many years as I could, and they went through financial difficulties, and they laid off more than 50% of the workforce, including me. And everyone was so confused. Everyone thought I was still at the company, because if you work in HR, you're always in the room when people are terminated. And so they thought that, like, when we got out of the room after we'd all been laid off, I was like, "Oh man, you guys, I'm so sad." And they're like, "Wait, what? Like, we thought you were just there."
So you started this story, yeah.
Right. So I at that point, I already had the YouTube channel, but I don't know. Oh yeah. So I had never sold anything. So I think I'd been doing the YouTube channel for over a year, or maybe even 2 years. And I'd never really thought to monetize it or anything like that. It was pure hobby. So during that time when I was laid off, I wrote an ebook.
Wow.
Like, okay, I have several months of severance. Cool. Like, why don't I spin this into a product that I could make money off of for years to come? So that layoff ended up leading to hundreds of thousands of dollars from that one project that I did and I put out into the world. So that was kind of the first moment that I started kind of dipping my toe into more of an entrepreneurship slant versus just a content creator, blogger type vibe. And I landed a job at a renewable energy company in Santa Monica, another just fabulous company. And there I had gotten offers. I gotten several job offers, and for several of them, they were really great head of HR jobs. And I didn't want to be the head of HR as my next job. I had just been it. I had gotten promoted several times. And I said, I want a little bit less responsibility. And I want to have time for my side project for this YouTube channel. So I took a less stressful job where I was leading up the learning and development department at this company, which, if you know anything about HR, the learning and development department is the chillest department because it's not time sensitive. You're not dealing with firing. You're not dealing with, issues of sexual harassment in the workplace. You're not dealing with compensation changes. You're just helping people do better at their jobs. And it's really nice. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And but I kept putting out content, and I started making courses as well. I launched my first digital course, and then I launched my next digital course. And these were all things that if it's a digital course or an ebook, you can keep selling it and work a full-time job. You don't have to, you're not trading dollars for hours. So I just did this in my free time. And I remember someone asking me, hey, Madeline, when are you going to quit your job and become a content creator? And I said, absolutely not. I love my job, and I'm teaching other people to find a job like I have. And then my financials came back for Q1 from my accountant. And I had made more money in the first quarter than I would make all year in my corporate job. And I thought, well, this doesn't make sense why I would stay at a corporate job. And so that same week, I put in my resignation, and I said, all right, here we go. I'm not going to work 2 jobs anymore. And that was kind of the history and I just went all in and just started really taking it seriously as a real full
free coffee just wasn't worth it anymore. At that point, you're like, I'm going to do my own thing.
I know.
So, touching back on what you said earlier about, I found another fabulous company to work for. I think that's kind of undervalued in terms of when you are getting interviewed, right? And they ask, oh, do you have any questions for us? So many times we're like, oh, no, you're so excited to be done with the grilling portion of the interview. You think to just walk out at that point. But I think as much of you're getting interviewed, you're trying to interview that company as well. So I think when you're saying you find all these great companies, I feel like you're doing more of the research. And what's your process or advice to people trying to find these fabulous companies to work for? Is there anything that you found that works for you?
Absolutely. I interviewed at quite a few companies and ended up getting several offers. And the offers I declined, there were these little red flags that I just was not comfortable with. They offered me more money. They offered me a lot more things. But there was things like the business model didn't quite make sense. And like things like and then one of the companies, it kind of like ended up fizzling out and kind of not having enough funding. And then the other company, within 6 months, they had a bunch of layoffs. And it was kind of last one in, first one out. So I would have lost my job in 6 months had I not picked up on that. So I was kind of, and that was like a brand name company. That would have looked nice on my resume, but it just didn't feel right. And then when I talked to the company I ultimately chose, my interview, so a recruiter had reached out to me. I had never heard of this company before. This recruiter reached out to me and said, hey, I want to talk to you about doing an HR business partner role. I said, great. So I interviewed that recruiter, and they're like, okay, we're going to introduce you to the VP of HR. I talked to her, and she goes, based on your experience, you'd be amazing at learning and development instead of this HR VP role. And I said, respectfully, I disagree. I want this HR VP role. I want to be considered for that. And she said, respectfully, let me talk to you a bit more about this other role that I think we could create for you. And what was so cool was this amazing back and forth with that manager of, she was coaching me on my career and like helping me work through it. And I was asking her pretty critical questions about, hey, if I want to continue moving up the ladder in HR, is this like kind of almost, I was seeing the learning and development role almost as like a detour versus like a way to keep continuing going up the ladder. And she's like, no, actually, I came up through learning and development. And here's how this can really actually launch your career to the next level. And so I was thinking, that's the kind of manager I want. I want someone who is coaching me, who is thinking about my career future. And on top of that, I mean, it's a renewable energy company. I definitely am very focused on sustainability. It was a 15-minute bike ride from where I lived, which again, like I had the most beautiful commute. I loved riding my bike there every morning. And you know, the pay was solid. The benefits were solid. Like none of that was bad. So you kind of just have to really think about the day-to-day versus looking at the flashy company or the high paycheck and think about, is that actually what's going to get me excited in the morning?
That is absolute facts. Uh, that's insane. Your story is so amazing in so many ways, but your discernment is like top tier.
Yeah.
Like the way you could just like go into an interview and know like that job right there is not for me, or like that's a red flag. That's a skill, Madeline.
Right.
A lot of people don't have that skill. And it's something that we talk about on this podcast a lot. Um, how did you do that? Like how do you even recognize that?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is I asked very important questions about the business. So, I'll tell you one of the business I didn't end up going with was one of them was one of those. Remember when a few years back when electric scooters were all the rage? This was at the peak. I was interviewing with one of those companies that you definitely know the name of at their peak, and they were hiring like gangbusters. And I began asking very specific questions about their business model, and their business model really depended a lot on hardware, the actual building the scooters, fixing the scooters, charging the scooters, and I was really digging into how much money are you making? And all this stuff. And I even saw in their culture values was be frugal. And I was just thinking, wow, okay, I come from video games, software, where the profit margins are pretty decent. And then this is such a challenging market. And I saw the competitors coming in and the challenges. And I think Uber had just started getting their own scooters as well. And so I was just seeing the market. And then I also, talked to different people on the team, and I asked very pointed questions about their work situations. And it really brought to light, if I joined this company, it was going to be a big grind. If I joined, it was going to be chaos because they were double, tripling their head count every few months. And then if I wanted a raise, like I better ask for the highest possible salary when I sign this offer, because there's no way I'm getting a raise probably within a year, or probably not even within 2 years. And so so that is a very specific example. And I think it's tough to not give very specific examples when it comes to vetting a business, because you need to be asking specific follow-up questions. It's like and I even do this, is that a lot of career coaches, we give general questions. What are your goals for the next 6 months? And yes, I think those are good ways to start a conversation, but really you have to be a business person when you're in these interviews and really dissecting the opportunity in the ways that is helpful to you to make a practical decision.
See, this is why we should all follow Madeline Mann on every social media platform, because that's just like a gem that we could spend another 2 hours going into this stuff, but
I think there's a lot to do with the writing. Like, I feel like writers in general have to be very self-aware. You're thinking all the time. You have to put pen to paper in such a way that you process thoughts differently. So I think a lot of writers just are naturally kind of like that, right? They're very well-spoken, very thoughtful. And so I think you have a deeper understanding of what you want and what your needs are because of that history of, your passion for writing ultimately was what it sounds like to me. So also you have that skill.
Just absolutely dissecting everything about every decision you're making is something I'm going to take into the future after this podcast. Just FYI.
Yeah, exactly. Of just really being sure-footed about the next step you make, without choosing that next job. The last thing I'll say about this opportunity that I taken, that was a great opportunity. I called 3 former employees before I took the job. I found them. I talked to them, and I got this skinny on this business because I said my time is too valuable to go to a company where I'm going to be miserable. And the reviews came back great, and they were correct. Like, of course, they gave some negative things, but yeah, I ended up really liking the job. But that, again, like that discernment, that is something that I think a lot of people don't bring into their careers. I call it being on the lazy river of a career, which is usually what happens to a lot of people who are very smart and talented, is you could just hop on your inner tube in the lazy river and opportunities will come to you. A former coworker will offer you the new position, or your boss will promote you. And you don't really think about it. You just take the position because it's more pay, because it's the next step, without you thinking about, is this what I actually want? Am I going to actually really drive myself in the right direction? Or am I going to take the lazy river where I end up where I end up?
Wow.
Dang. See, she just blew us out of the water. I could tell by Tyler's expression on his face. Like, he's like, whoa.
I want to ask if you were a fly on a wall between a conversation of 2010 Madeline Mann versus 2023 Madeline Mann, how do you think that interaction would go? Or what would you tell your past self, or what would your past self tell your future self? I guess how would that interaction?
I don't know what your impression was of me in high school, but I definitely did not feel like anyone special. I didn't feel like I was talented. I didn't feel like I was noticed. I was never the smartest kid in the class, or the teacher's favorite, or the captain of the soccer team, or the lead in the play. I did all those things. I was in plays. I was always an extra. I was on the soccer team. I was just a person who sometimes played, sometimes sat on the bench. I was very unextraordinary. But I always knew I had more to give. I always knew that if I only found my right place in the world, that I could add value. And I think that that's what I would be glad to see, is that I did find my place.
One segment that we do on this podcast is we actually tell you what our impressions of you were at the time of you being in high school or elementary school. Where were we doing from? And I'll start, actually, because I remember a young Madeline Mann who just moved, and you told me he was from Memphis earlier. And you moved in the 4th grade. I did remember that. And I remember just like one instance that told me kind of like about like your character. You were upset that somebody was spelling your last name MAN, and you were very adamant about them spelling it MANN. Do you remember this or no?
No.
And I was like, wait a second, like, man, I was having trouble spelling because I was in the 4th grade. And I was like, man, it's MAN. I'm like, oh. And I remember asking you, I was like, your last name is MANN? And you're like, yeah, because you were so mad at the other person for spelling it wrong. And I was like, that's hilarious. And I'll always remember that for some reason. Just random memory that sticks out in my head. Like,
that's a good one. I remember we had, I think it was ZPE, so like very, very end of the day PE in 6th grade, I want to say. And I definitely remember you being a soccer player. I definitely remember that. And then I do remember you and, I'm blanking on her name at the time, one of your best friends in 6th grade, calling me John Smith all the time. And that was like the thing to do. I don't know why that became a thing, but
was your program, man?
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I just remember hanging out and playing sports all the time. So I knew you were very athletic, great smile, all that kind of stuff. So that was the first thing that stuck out to me, is just being called John Smith all the time I was around you, I guess.
I wonder if it was
that sounds right. That sounds right.
Yeah.
You know where she is today. We should get her on.
I saw her maybe about 6 years ago, 5 years ago. She was playing in a punk band with 2 other people from high school.
Oh, I heard we heard about this on this podcast. Connor Vance told us about this.
He was in the band.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that would be fun to maybe have all 3 of them on at the same time or something, because they've been going strong, I think, with that band since high school.
That's something we're gonna have to do, I think.
Right.
That's pretty.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, but see, I think we're ready for the rapid fire.
All right, we're gonna close out this podcast with little lightning round questions that me and
Madeline dropped too many gems on the people, and we let it like marinate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got 6 questions here. These are gonna kind of bring you back to some high school memories, or something to think about, right? So, first one's gonna be best off-campus spot for lunch.
Oh man, during high school. So I never went off campus. Never. I would always stay, but after, when I was in plays, I would sometimes go to, was it? Oh, El Pollo Loco.
Not there anymore. None of those restaurants are there anymore.
Yeah, it's not there anymore.
Barbecue gone. Everything is gone. Fat Burger, all of it gone. Okay, hardest class.
I I think it was Mrs. Wexler's chemistry class. I was not good at chemistry. I just remember like really needing help on that. And it was like a sophomore year class, I think. But Miss Wexler,
I didn't have her, but chemistry would have been, that was the bane of my existence in college. So in high school, that would have been even worse.
Yeah, chem is hard.
That was definitely hard. Most useful skill that you think you learned in high school? Most useful skill.
Oh man, what useful skill. I really did like taking statistics.
You got Tipper too?
We love Tipper.
I love
We're gonna try to get him on too.
Yes. He was fantastic, and the class kind of set me on this trajectory for psychology and for kind of more data-driven decisions. And it was one of the first times in school where I felt like I was actually learning something useful.
He definitely set us up well. He just like would espouse life advice in general of like how to meet people in freshman year and like what to expect. And like he was just a phenomenal instructor, teacher, man, everything, right? So I definitely he's an
He's also
I think now.
Yeah, he's at a high school in Irvine right now. He's also a Clipper fan. So
nice. There you go. Joe's a huge Clipper fan. 3 more here. Best restroom to take a dump on campus.
Were there any good ones?
That's why I told him no.
Trick question. It's a trick question.
You're all awful.
They were atrocious. I actually had flashbacks. I don't know what it was like in the boys' rooms, but in the girls' rooms, even the mirrors were like etched out. So you couldn't even see yourself in the mirrors. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Probably like one of the second story buildings in like I don't even remember what the buildings were called, like the English building. But the names didn't make any sense.
We'll go English second story. I like that. Good final answer there.
Yeah.
Most attractive teacher, what you would call.
Oh, what was her name? I think she was like an AP English teacher.
Miss Moria? I remember.
No, that's not.
She's like a brunette. She's a brunette.
Fairchild, maybe?
Fairchild. Man, this is gonna bother me. I really liked her. Yeah, I had like AP literature with her, and I remember she looked like an actress. Like I was like, wow, she's so pretty. Yeah, I would say her. I wish I could say her name, but yeah, I thought she was
last
quite
question.
lovely.
Most overrated song during high school.
Oh man, I mean, was out in high school? I think that might have been middle school.
Yeah.
But that song haunts me. We had so much bad music in high school, unfortunately.
So true.
I don't know, just a lot of those like yelling or really anything by the Black Eyed Peas. Like I feel like the Black Eyed Peas were so alive and well during high school, and it's just like I got a feeling.
We're trying to make that our theme song. We're
gonna have Connor Van play a violin like that song because it was kind of like the theme of our year.
That's too funny.
Yeah. I don't know.
I guess we should get Stas to do our theme song at this point. We'll just do the hardcore intro. It'll be sick.
I'll try to get them right after this. I'll reach out.
Right, we'll reach out. Well, that's the last question that I had for you, Madeline. So you passed.
Aww. Those were fun.
Any final words, Jim?
Yeah. Go follow Madeline Mann on every social media platform. And we always let our guests have the final word. And what you can do in this situation, what I've seen other people do, is a message to the rest of your classmates, a message to people who are listening and want to know what to do with their career and what their life might look like 13 years after high school. And just a final word that whatever you want to leave with is totally fine and up to you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we were all pretty fortunate to go to Samoa High. Like looking back on that time, there was a lot of really great things about it, and I realized that probably is not the case for everyone. You know, people probably had tough high school experiences as well. But I really hope that people know that if they're not feeling great about where they're at in their career, I work with people who are in their 30s, but also 40s, 50s, and 60s who still feel that way. And so I think a lot of us feel, because we're in our 30s now, that we can't change careers because we're too far behind and or it's too late. It is definitely not too late. And we're just getting started. So know that if there's anything in your life you want to change, especially because I work with people every day who are changing their lives and they are decades older than us.
I think I'm quitting and doing HR right now, to be honest. After
Yeah.
you energize me so much to do HR. I love this. I'm going to get a psych degree, be a master's. I'm going to do your path. Just all over again.
Okay. Slow
I
down.
think I'm going to end this podcast before Tyler does something drastic.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, exactly.
On that note, it's the Alumni Podcast. Much love, Madeline. You're welcome back anytime. You can also tell people where to follow you.
Yes. I have a YouTube channel called Self.made.millennial. Check it out. Same name on TikTok as well as definitely follow me on LinkedIn as well. Madeline Mann.
Super cool. Great content. I can vouch for it. And as always, I'll see you guys later.
Peace.
Thanks.